Here, once again, to recap, 15 people dead, 16 people hospitalized, 5 of them in critical condition. Live tonight, Littleton, Colorado, and Jay Burkett, Channel 7 Eyewitness News.
A little bit of pain, a little bit of everything at once. It's deep, you know, but just got to be strong.
A tragedy central not only in the United States' history, but in the history of the world. The Columbine school shooting initiated the media frenzy over school shootings and the call for protective legislature for schools. April 20th, 1999, in Littleton, Colorado, a suburb of Denver, saw the first large-scale school shooting in U.S. history, killing 13 and injuring 20 more before the perpetrators killed themselves. 2 teens, Dylan Klebold and Eric Harris, walked into their high school, commonly known as Columbine, at about 11:10 a.m. This is where the story shifts from the widespread tale that has been perpetuated by the media. Before they ever started shooting, the boys set duffel bags containing bombs inside the cafeteria, which was set to host more than 500 students for lunch within the next 10 minutes. That's right, the infamous school shooting known for its meticulous planning was actually supposed to be a bombing, which would have been more than 5 times deadlier than any school bombing in history. However, based on research by a national committee focused on determining the reason for the shooting, not only was the shooting not supposed to be a shooting, it was never meant to personally attack the kids attending Columbine. Contrary to the rumors that news outlets have perpetuated for more than 20 years, the bombing at Columbine High School was merely that, a bombing at a public setting which just happened to be a school. In the case of Columbine, the barriers that were broken were truly horrific, starting with the media's barrier between fact and fiction, and the barrier that had existed that protected those that consumed the news from irrational and widespread panic tactics used by the media. With Columbine, the fear created by the media reporting on the crisis was the impact of a stream of misinformation and overestimation. Misinformation was spread through the school's death total, the amount of shooters, their plans, and the reason for this terrible event. The result? A panicked public and an overarching fear for school children throughout the country. This tragedy would forever change how school shootings are viewed and analyzed by the media.
Horrors like Columbine terrify us, and we need an explanation. So even if we don't have an answer, we find one. And we find it really too fast.
2 witnesses that we talked to on the telephone described them as members of the trenchcoat mafia. These are kids they claim routinely dress in black trench coats.
Kids were watching this on TV. And also, it was the early days of cell phones. If they weren't seeing it, their friends were watching it on TV, calling them on their cell phones, and letting them know.
They were saying that they wanted to do this for their revenge, for the school, I guess, because, they're such an outcast at our school.
It was this little round and round feedback chamber. So when a kid goes on TV and says, oh yeah, they were outcasts, another kid who doesn't really know the killers well or at all thinks, oh, they're outcasts. Oh, I didn't realize that. Then when he's interviewed, he says they're outcasts. So you're contaminating the witness pool like that.
And speculation about a black-coated mafia and its supposed grievances ran wild.
A gang that apparently hated athletes.
It was all because people were mean to him last year.
The Trenchcoat Mafia is more than just black clothes. These boys were dangerously strange.
In a yearbook photo of some group members that was broadcast nationwide, neither gunman appeared.
As news took this untrue story and spread it out of proportion, the coverage made parents and students across the nation fear for the lives of their children. This broke the first barrier, the barrier that had formerly protected those who weren't involved in the tragedy from seeing that this could happen to them at any time. This fear fed into the second barrier, which is the gun legislation which was passed after Columbine. Eventually, many students, parents, teachers, and more protested for better gun laws and gun legislation, especially in Colorado, where Columbine was. The battle was not just about safety, it was also about party allegiance in each state that laws were about to be passed in. Parents of children who had died and former Columbine students were very concerned about this gun approach, and most of them lobbied to get stricter legislation passed, eventually ending up going to Congress.
And there was one message observers seemed to take from the event immediately.
School shootings have become a dark stain on American life.
The phenomenon of kids turning guns on their schoolmates is all too familiar.
And it's not just Littleton. We know that now. We've had lots and lots and lots of places.
Columbine came after a string of school shootings in Oregon, Arkansas, and other states. Reaction to the Colorado massacre helped fuel a national movement towards school security.
Parents across the country are demanding to know what their schools are doing to keep their children safe.
Today, nearly half of public schools surveyed nationwide employ police or hired guards. At least 21 states mandate lockdown drills for school shooting scenarios, and millions of dollars have been spent on everything from metal detectors to anti-bullying programs.
The gun control barrier, as you can see, was not easy to be broken. Many of the students were traumatized after Columbine, and they couldn't bear to speak out on guns after the event, including Casey Regsiger Johnson. Many factors went into the cause of the shooting, and the results. I'm not sure if I think there is more school shootings, or if it seems to be reported more often. However, there should be no risk in going to school. That part makes me sad. I've struggled with the idea of sending my own kids to school. In fact, this barrier was barely broken, and the very little gun control legislature that resulted from the impact of Columbine barely helped the American people. This can mainly be attributed to not only the difficulty of passing laws that are even partially against the Second Amendment, but to the variety of other factors, including the mental health of the shooters, their upbringing, the lack of anti-bullying programs in school, the police and SWAT teams' response time, and more. Another obstacle was the pushback from huge groups like the NRA and gun manufacturers and sellers. Despite all of this, some laws were passed regarding gun shows and stores and who they can sell to, mostly preventing them from being sold without a background check or to a minor who is not lawfully allowed to own a firearm. However, many weapons are still allowed to be owned in many states, including Colorado, where Columbine occurred. Columbine was the first instance of large-scale violence in schools, and the 1999 tragedy set forth a number of precedents which applied to future situations. Two barriers were broken after Columbine: the media's use of misinformation to break down the barrier that kept faraway events from seeming real, and the push and subsequent fight against the advancement of gun control legislature. Both of these barriers were important in the aftermath of the tragedy, and each is concerning in their own way. Columbine High School will forever be a darkness that lingers in our past and affects our reactions to violence in the present.